that I really shouldn't read comments. No one should, but I do, and then I come over stuff like this. I mean, pride is a sin, as the seven deadly sins type of sin. I don't care if you're gay. So, first of all, thank you for not caring if I'm gay. I think the world would be better if people didn't care so much about stuff that is none of their business. I'm not gay. I'm not straight. But that's none of your business. And you don't have to care. But somehow, I don't quite believe that you don't care, because you call me a sinner and you call it a deadly sin. And at least in my book, if you care enough about something to say that others deserve to die for it, then you care. Now, this comment was on a series of posts I did around Pride, sort of mocking other hateful Christian comments. So, I mean, I brought it on myself, and I'm completely aware of this. I'm poking the bee's nest because it deserves to be poked. And this wasn't the only mean-hearted comment saying in some shape or form that I or other people like me deserve to die or endure eternal torture for being who we are. There were countless of these comments labeling me as a sinner or as a Satanist. To which I reply, if you say I am, then I'll be a Satanist. But in reality, of course, I am Kim Diaz Holm, also called Den Unge Herr Holm. I'm an artist. I've read the Bible a couple of times, but there are a lot of people who are more competent about talking about the sheer theological and philosophical stupidity and ignorance behind these types of posts. There are people who have, written books or read books or, that know stuff, and I'm an artist largely talking out of my own ass. But since you keep commenting on my posts, I feel obliged to talk out of my own ass. Now, the seven deadly sins are nowhere to be found in the Bible. It is one of the traditions that started sometime after the writing of the Bible and that developed over the centuries into the list we have now. And it was 8 deadly sins, and it was 7 sins that were other, and they were 7 virtues. But we still somehow remember these 7 deadly sins as if they are specifically stated by a authoritative text, which they are not. They are, of course, based on parts of the Bible that were, due to the political climate of the times, emphasized. So when monks were supposed to live in abject poverty without worldly possessions, then you emphasize the parts of the Bible that say greed are wrong, and greed becomes a deadly sin. And when you want to emphasize a very strict sexual morality, you say that lust is one of the deadly sins, and lust in the sense that it was interpreted as a deadly sin, wasn't always just about lusting after someone else's wife, or about prostitution, or about queerness. It could also be a deadly sin to lust after your own wife when you weren't trying to make a baby. Which sounds wrong. And it didn't even have to be lust. It could be just, enjoying sex too much with your wife. And you can do this with all the other sins. We have envy. We have lust, pride, envy, sloth, greed. Wait a minute. Wikipedia, where are you? Okay. 7 deadly sins. Not the anime. Pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. Thank you, Wikipedia. And in this list, it sort of makes sense why pride would be considered the worst of the deadly sins if we look at what biblical pride is. And as I understand it, there are a number of different words that can be translated as pride in the Bible, but both the words and the context that they're in makes it pretty clear that we're talking about pride in the sense of either thinking you are better than others, or as in hubris, as in thinking you are equal to or better than the gods or God, or, as my atheistic ass would say, the cosmos, the rules that govern us all. And even if you look at all the other types of deadly sins, the greed and the avarice, why am I thinking avarice? What is avarice? Oh, avarice is greed. You learn something new every day. Now, if you look at this list of 7 deadly sins, you sort of understand why they become deadly sins when they are paired with pride, and therefore why pride should be at the top. Now, Jesus goes into the temple with a certain wrath, and he topples the moneylenders' tables, but he's not committing a deadly sin, is he? So it's not the feeling of anger in itself that's a deadly sin. It's the feeling of anger towards your neighbor based in your pride, based in this idea that you deserve to be angry at them. They deserve the wrath you pour onto them because of who they are and because they defy being who you want them to be. And if we look at greed, I would hope that Christians would spend more time talking about the sin of greed than talking about other people's sexuality. Because, quite frankly, greed is a bigger problem in our world today. In capitalism, which glorifies greed, who would have thunk greed becomes a problem? But it's not greedy, it's not a problem, it's not sinful to want things. The sinful, the deadly sin is thinking you deserve other people's things. That because of some letters on some weird paper, you deserve the fruits of the land which other people plow, that you own the factories that other people work in, that you own the homes that other people live in. That's greed. Being so filled with pride that you think these things are yours. That's the deadly sin of greed, isn't it? To envy others. I mean, we all have envy. We all experience this, but when you become bitter and hateful because other people are allowed to express and celebrate themselves, that's a prideful kind of envy. I can see why that would be a deadly sin. And sloth, I mean, I love sloths. But that's probably not the deadly sin kind. Sure, we can all be lazy. But to be a fucking keyboard warrior, typing hate towards strangers on the internet, thinking you're making a difference, that's another kind of sloth. I can see why that would be a deadly sin. Eating until you're full isn't a sin. But eating until you're full, stuffing yourself while your neighbor starves, that's not good. And I don't know if I made the whole list or not, but I mean, this is the type of pride that the Bible condemns again and again. This is the kind of pride, thinking you're better than others, thinking you deserve more than others, thinking you know better than God or the cosmos. That's the thing the Bible condemns again and again. But pride, in the sense of Pride Month, isn't about that at all. We use, in English, we use the word pride or proud in many different ways. I'm a proud owner of this Sennelier brand Carmen ink or watercolor. I'm not sponsored, I promise. But I am the proud owner of that. I am the proud father of 2 kids. That's not the biblical type of pride. That's not the sinful type of pride. Some people are proud to be Americans, proud owners of a Cadillac. And again, that's not the biblical type of pride. Because hopefully you don't think that where you are born makes you better than others, or that which type of ink you use or car you drive makes you better than others. But what is pride as in Pride Month? Pride as in Pride Month is a reaction to shame, to being shamed by proud people. It's the reaction to hundreds of years of being told that who you are and who you love is something that you should be ashamed of, that you should hide, that you should deny, that will lead you to endless, eternal torture and suffering. Pride is saying, no, I won't be ashamed. I'm proud of who I am, no matter what you say. And I'm not a believer in Christianity or the Bible or in any organized religion or spirituality. But I am a great fan of mythology, and I do believe in the power of mythology. And in the Bible, I think you find some pretty powerful stories about exactly what I'm talking about. For instance, when Jesus goes around spreading the message that love is the greatest, turning over the moneylenders' tables, fighting greed, and he gets arrested. And of course there are contradicting stories here in the different Gospels, and the story seems to sort of evolve from a more down-to-earth description of the trials, and then to this description of the trials where you have the nice Romans that the Christians at the time wanted to be friends with, and then you have the evil Jews, which, you know, Christianity was a Jewish sect, but it wanted to separate from Judaism for various political reasons. But still, in all these contradictory tales of Jesus' trials, you have this one element that seems to be extremely meaningful for the people who told the stories. And that is that during the trials by the Jewish elders, Jesus is asked, "Are you the Son of God?" And he says, "You say I am." Then by Pontius Pilatus, as we say, he gets asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answers, "You say I am." And in either of those cases, he could have said, "No, I'm just a normal rabbi. I'm just preaching. I'm sorry. This is all a terrible misunderstanding." But instead, he chooses to face the torture, the beatings, the humiliation, being stripped naked, being put on a fucking cross. Also that when people ask him, "Are you this bad thing that we accuse you of?" he can say, "Fuck you, I am what I am." And to me, that's as close to the heart of pride. Not in the biblical sin sense, but in the modern queer sense that you can get. Fuck you, I am what I am. And you know, a lot of times people ask me why I call myself a Satanist. And this is the exact reason. Bigoted, hateful people said that how I choose to live my life is satanic. Fuck you, I am what I am. If you say so, it's on you. And I don't know how much of the mythology of Jesus is real. I don't know how much of it is fiction, how much we can understand in today's context, how much of the context of the time is lost. Ooh, the lights went out. But I do think that if there is some sort of heart of truth in the gospel narrative and in the narratives of the trials and crucifixion of Jesus, I think that Jesus died in a way that he would have been proud of. And that, if he looked upon those who used his name after his death to gain power, to spread hate, to be proud in the deadly sin type of way, I think he would have been a little bit ashamed.